All right, how's it going? This is Jake from Converge, and you are listening to the New Scene podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the New Scene. I'm your host, Keith, and we are back with another brand new episode. I think this week is the 6-year anniversary of the New Scene. That's 6 years of continuous new episodes, weekly, every single week. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. Anyway, to celebrate, we have a blockbuster Poison the Well episode. We have Chris Hornbrook, drummer of Poison the Well, and Vadim Taver, guitar player of Poison the Well. The band just released their first LP in 17 years. It's called Peace in Place. I hope you've heard it by now. It's excellent. It does not disappoint a single bit. It's a very powerful return from the band who perfected melodic metalcore in the late 90s and helped launch hardcore into the mainstream in the early 2000s. Poison the Well got their start in Miami and the surrounding areas in 1997 as a dual vocalist melodic hardcore band, releasing their debut EP, Distance Makes the Heart Grow Fonder, in 1998. The following year, the band solidified their lineup with the addition of vocalist Jeffrey Morera and released their debut LP, The Opposite of December, an LP that changed the face of hardcore at the time. Everyone had this album. Everyone loved this album. And everyone loved Poison the Well. I have very fond memories of that time in hardcore, of seeing Poison the Well a bunch of times in the Northeast. I saw their legendary 2001 Hellfest set that you can see on YouTube. A lot of good times. The band went on to big things, eventually releasing their third LP, You Come Before You, on Atlantic Records, and giving us 2 more LPs before disbanding in 2010. Poison the Well returned in 2016 and has been steadily gaining momentum over this past decade. It makes me really happy to see generations both old and new embrace the band. So we welcome Poison the Well's drummer Chris Hornbrook back to the show. We discuss his personal history, some Poison the Well history, his thoughts on the band's legacy and discography, and of course, a deep dive into the making of their excellent new LP, Peace in Place. We also welcome Poison the Well's guitarist and my friend Vadim Taver back to the show. Vadim tells the story of how he ended up joining the band, some great tour stories including the band's wild set at Sound and Fury Fest last year, and some of Vadim's own personal musical touchstones that he's reached over the years, and those stories brought a smile to my face. It's an excellent episode that you're definitely not going to want to miss, and it is coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support the New Scene. Sign up for the New Scene Patreon. There's 4 tiers of support, a ton of Patreon exclusive benefits, and you'll get access to That's Fair, our Patreon exclusive podcast. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Deathwish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. Make sure you pre-order Tales for the Rages. That's the brand new LP from Piebald. That's right, a new LP from Piebald. They've returned with their first new album in over 15 years. The first single, Still on the Couch, is streaming now everywhere, and the album is out Friday, June 12th. There's also new merch to go along with the LP, so head to the Iodine store at Deathwish Inc. now and pick something up. For more information, head to iodinerecordings.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can follow them on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And a thank you to our sponsor for the month of March, Persistent Vision Records. Head to persistentvisionrecords.com for all the latest updates, and you can follow them on Instagram at Persistent Vision Records. Well, this episode is a long boy, so I will not be checking in at the end, but check in at the end of next week's episode. We'll talk about everything. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'll read some Spotify comments. I'll read some feedback. We'll cover everything. But right now, we are going to speak to Chris Hornbrook, and right after him is Vadim Taver. Enjoy. All right, we've got Chris Hornbrook back on the show. Chris, welcome back.
What's up? How's it going?
Good. It's good. It's good to have you back. I've wanted to get you back for a full episode for a long time now, and what better time than now? Because Poison the Well has a new record coming out, which I'm excited about. A lot of people are excited about. Maybe we didn't expect it. I guess I didn't, but we'll talk more about that. The album's called Peace and Place. It's coming out March 20th. We're going to talk about that and a bunch of other stuff. But Chris, first I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. As crazy as the world is, especially in like America, and I'm good for the most part. I try to keep my attention focused on positive things, positive relationships, nurturing those relationships, being grateful for what I have, and it helps me kind of stay on the path moving forward because it's real easy to fall into one of these like potholes of either politics or social stuff or wars or all this like terrible shit that's going on in the world, in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people's opinions out there. But yeah, things are good. Things are things are good. I really can't complain. I mean, I'm sure I could find little things to complain about, but I won't do that.
No, you're right. And it always feels necessary to bookend that now. Like, yeah, things are good, but the world is on fire, which it is. There's a lot of horrible stuff going on, but I think it's important to put good things out into the world as well. There was a week where the news was crazy. There was like horrible stuff going on. I was buried in it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is the world we live in. I can't believe these are the people who represent us. And then I saw that Turmoil posted like 3 unreleased songs from years ago.
Yeah, it's great.
And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And then I made a little post about it. I was like, it's important to keep putting good things in the world for us because I need it, we need it. So, I think those things matter.
Yeah, 100%. There's always going to be terrible shit happening, and there's always going to be good shit happening. And I think it's more productive for people to focus on the good stuff because positivity is what moves things forward. And, it could be small things, it could be big things, but I personally think that shit's crucial because it's so easy to fall down like a negative fucking hole and just see everything as being terrible. And then, you're not much use to yourself or to the people around you. And, part of society of like trying to push towards good stuff.
Exactly. So you grew up in Hollywood, Florida?
Mm-hmm. I was born in Hollywood, Florida. And then I bounced around. I lived in like North Miami for like the first year of my life. And then I lived in like Lauderhill and then essentially suburbs of Fort Lauderdale, basically.
How did you like it down there growing up?
I have a very mixed relationship with Fort Lauderdale, as I love it because there's a lot of great people there, and I grew up there, and I have there's still close friends that I still have there that I communicate with and I care about deeply. But then there's the other part where it feels very disconnected from the rest of the world. To our closest real city to go to, aside from West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami, is Orlando, which is like 4 hours away. Where you're in Philly, you can go to fucking Philly. What are you, 3 or 4 hours from Baltimore? You're 2 hours from the city. There's a lot of places you can go to that you can, go play shows or go see shows or just like escape, I guess. And mixed relationship is, I guess, what you would say, where it's not a love-hate. It's because I don't hate Fort Lauderdale at all. If I didn't grow up there, I would have met Jeff and Ryan and Derek, and Poison Well would just never been a thing. And it's probably one of the most important relationships that I've had in my life ongoing. So I'm immensely grateful for that.
Yeah, like the town where I grew up outside of Philadelphia, the town was fine. The people in the town were fine. We had friends. I just hated school because I got bullied and I had a hard time there and I was awkward and I just felt different from everybody. What about for you? Like your upbringing as far as school goes and the neighborhood and everything, was that okay for you?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I definitely felt disconnected, and I definitely felt I definitely felt like I didn't belong. It wasn't until I started, getting into punk rock and hardcore that I felt like I found like a community where I felt like I did belong. But like throughout high school and middle school, I wouldn't necessarily say that I got bullied. I was just always the odd man out. I was always the either youngest one in the group that was into music, and other people were into sports, or the odd man out. I listened to rock music and everybody was listening to hip hop, just different things like that, where there was only like a few other oddball people in either the social scene or the classroom or school or whatever that like I identified with. But for the most part, I just kind of kept to myself and I did my thing. And I was really fortunate in that regard. Like never, obviously I was never a bully, but I was never bullied. Everybody just kind of knew me as like the weird, the dude that was into weird stuff. Cause nobody gave a fuck about heavy music at the time or rock music. They cared about like what was popular on MTV, or not music at all. They cared. They were really into sports and shit like that. So
yeah, same dynamics here. I was the weird dude, the dude who was into weird stuff. Everyone was into sports and I wasn't. And a lot of people gravitated toward hip hop, which I listened to some, but the weirder stuff was always my thing. How did you find this punk rock, hardcore, all of that music?
There was a group of kids that I hung out within my neighborhood that were like a little. They kind of straddled this weird line of being, I don't want to say jockish, but they were into sports. But there was like one or two dudes that were into like all the Seattle stuff in the early 90s, like which I was into. That was like my first introduction. It was like Soundgarden, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam. That whole thing was the initial thing that kind of got me into music. And this group of friends that I was kind of with, it was like 4 or 5 guys. We all listened to that stuff. And at some point, I think one of them discovered like a Punkorama CD that had like NoFX and like SNFU and Bad Religion and that whole particular type of like punk. And it was like a whole, like when I heard it, it was like, what is this? Because it was so different than the Seattle stuff that was happening. And then the wave that happened after Seattle was like, I don't know, it felt like it wasn't as potent. I don't want to name band names, but once, especially the way the music model worked back then, when there was 1 or 2 bands that popped off, then you had all these record labels trying to find basically derivative versions of that, So yeah, basically the moment that I sort of discovered like NoFX and all those sort of bands, it was like, well, what is this? Like a million miles an hour, and it was just different. And that was like my first introductory to it. And then at some point they like discovered the infamous Club Q, Cheers Club Q, which was like 2 small really clubs in Miami and Fort Lauderdale that people would go to shows to. And I remember one of the dudes being like, oh, the guy was in the crowd and he like loved this stuff on stage and he plugged his shit in and they started playing a show. And like our minds were fucking blown at that point. Cause prior, you would go to, in Fort Lauderdale at the time, it was like The Edge, which was like 1,000 cap room, 1,000, 1,200, or like the Fort Lauderdale Arena or the Miami Arena where like really, really big concerts happen. And the idea that they could just be normal people in the crowd that just got together and wrote some shitty songs and then got on stage and people paid, at the time, fucking $5 to get in to see the show, it was like, whoa, it was just as a 15 year old, it was just like, whoa, that's how that happens. And that's kind of how it started. Like I started a band with one of the dudes in that circle. And then I had another 2 dudes that pulled in to play guitar with and play bass that went to my school. And, that was the beginning sort of that. And, it was crazy. I mean, it's crazy to kind of look back now and see like that was the genesis of it.
Yeah, I went back and listened to our original conversation in anticipation of this, and we were just talking about all of the great music that was coming out of Florida. And I discovered hardcore in 98 through the guys in This Day Forward, and we were listening to Shai Hulud and Strong Arm were 2 big ones, and you mentioned a lot of other ones, Bird of Ill Omen, Morning Again. I mean, the list goes on and on of bands, great bands that have come out of that area.
Yeah, I mean that like the way, at least for myself, I look at like my sort of musical growth with obviously with becoming a better player and becoming more professional and like getting an understanding of creativity in my instrument, but also like I guess my ascent in the industry. That was like, like I was saying, it was like playing shows and then playing shows to like just our friends to then getting into like a band, like a punk band that was in the scene that was like bigger like instead of drawing 10 people, they drawed 50, And then from that, like Ryan asking me to start him and the original singer, Ari Lair, like, hey, we want to do this like hardcore band. And then within the hardcore band, like we want it to be melodic and this cool thing. And like, yeah, like John from Money again will, sign us to his record label, Eulogy Records. That was like what you're talking about with those cool, like South Florida hardcore bands. That was like step number like 4 or 5 of like jumping up, where like I discovered that. And they were like the older dudes. They were like, I was probably 15 or 16 at the time. And those guys were like in their late teens, early 20s, maybe even mid 20s. So it's just like, yeah, it's funny how that like you start discovering things and then, it kind of takes off from there.
How did you get into drumming? How did you pick it up?
My dad played bass. And when I was young, I dabbled in like a few instruments. Like they, took guitar lessons when I was a kid, and played alto saxophone when I was like in 7th grade for like summer school. And then like I think we rented a cornet. It was just trying different things to see what resonated with me, I guess. And at one point, there was a kid in my neighborhood that had like a CB percussion drum set with cymbals and hardware, like Ricky Dink, shitter kit. And he was selling it. And he was like, yeah, I'm selling it for like $200. And I like went to my mom and I went to my dad and I was like, hey, will you do this for me? And thankfully they did, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be living some other very different. If they said no, my life would have taken a extremely different course, extremely different. I mean, maybe I would have eventually found a way to fucking play drums. I don't know. But that was like the dude lived, 50 steps from where I lived, like just handing $200 and bringing the drums over, like kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. Weird to think about, right? Like what could have happened?
Dude, I think about that all the time, like I'm about to be 45 and I've been playing in Poison the Well since I was 17 years old. Clearly not consistently, but it's like, it's crazy to think that like, if I didn't get the drum set and then go through all those things and meet all the people, and then Ryan asked me to do it and then me join, then they fired me for like a few months and they asked me to come back. It was like all these like little things kind of had to happen before like we essentially wrote opposite, 17, 18 years old. And like that record has clearly changed my life. So, it's just wild to think about that. And like just all the shit that happened. It's like, whoa, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah. Why did you get fired for a little bit?
At the time, my style was a little bit more like punk. It was like,
the horse gallop beat. Yeah.
Yeah. The punk gallop beat. And that was just like that was my lane. And I was really good at it at the time. And they wanted somebody that, wasn't rushy, could play double kick, could do all these sort of things. And yeah, they let me go and I was bummed and they got somebody else. And at some point it just wasn't working with him. And then, that's also another thing I could say about Fort Lauderdale is that the pool was so small for talent that they're like, there was nobody else to ask. So they just asked me to come back, thankfully. If it was a bigger pool of better drummers, once again, my life may have just went on a crazy different course. Who knows?
Yeah, I think about that too. I'm like, what if I never started this podcast? And then if I didn't start the podcast, I ended up in a band, The Darling Fire, for a year, who are from South Florida. Geronimo's in that band, and Jolie, who was in Rocking Horse Winter. And if I had not have joined that band, I might not have been where I am with my band now. And yeah, it is like spending time down there that year. Florida really is like a different world. It's just so far from everything.
Yeah. Where does Geronimo and Jolie live? Are they still in like Fort Lauderdale? Or are they
Atlanta.
like further north?
Yeah, I think they moved up to Atlanta. That was the last I heard.
I mean, if you want to like be in a band where you don't have to drive like 7 hours to get out of the state, Atlanta's a rad city. It's my favorite city in the South. So I full on back them going there. But yeah, I mean, from Atlanta, at least it's a little easier to go west on tour or go like, Chicago or fucking, go up the East Coast. But yeah, I mean, from Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta, it's like a 12-hour drive. It's like insane. And it's nothing. Fucking jack shit.
Yeah.
It sucks. The drive sucks.
Yeah, it's we drove straight from New York City to Atlanta. And I think that was 14 hours. And that's not even to Florida, because we did a run through Florida with Spotlights a few years ago. And yeah, it's just like, a really long drive.
I've done that drive so many times of like playing some shows up in the fucking Northeast, and you have like you realize you're not going to be home for another 18 to 24 hours. Or same thing on the West Coast, like because I live in California now, but at the time, say you ended a tour in LA, it's going to be at least 20 to 36 hours just to get to say Jacksonville or just to get to 75. And then you have to tack on another 5 hours to like go southeast. It's like, oh man, it's just I've put my time and I have no desire to do that in a van ever again. I've done it so many times.
Do you guys have a bus now?
Yeah, we primarily do bus. We try to roll somewhat professionally. And thankfully the band has grown, even though we weren't really doing much the past 10, 15 years. That thankfully we're just fortunate enough to where the band has actually continued to grow on its own without us having to do much. So we're fortunate enough when we go on tour, we try to do it smart and strategic and bring great bands out and have a great package. And so we can afford to have a bus, we can afford to bring a truck, we can have some limited crew to make the show worth the money that you spend, because that's also another thing too. It's like back in the day, we would just show up with just a fucking sound guy and like a merch dude. And yeah, I don't think we were charging much back then, but like we want to put on a show for people. We want to have cool lights and have it sound good and have the shit sound good for us so we could play good, So yeah, we try to do a bus as much as possible in the US.
Yeah, mission accomplished with the new shows, because when you played Brooklyn Paramount, I was there. And yeah, every band on the bill I wanted to see, and the entire show was great. So the care shows.
That's how we kind of like our team moving forward. That's kind of how it is. We're not just going to play like I say this, but maybe I put my foot in my mouth a year from now because of circumstances. But the idea is that when we tour once or twice a year, it's a thing. It's an event. Last year it was us, Glassjaw, Better Lovers, and then this year it's going to be us and Converge, and then maybe next year it's something else. Like you have to give them a reason to come out. You have to give them a reason to give a shit. You have to put on a good show. You have to have them give a fuck about all the bands on the bill. You have to have killer merch. You have to make it worth them spending their money, especially now. The economy sucks. Things are hard. Like you have to give to the fucking people, and sometimes people might be a little bit bummed about the ticket price, but like if we could show people what budgets look like with all the line items on it to make it happen, I think that they would understand a little bit more. You're just going through budgets and these line items and you see like what the total is and you're like, it's so much money, but it's just what things cost,
Sadly, yes, it's just capitalism doing further damage on the industry.
The way it goes, I guess.
Like everything else, yeah. So, yeah, Poison the Well, experiencing the most popularity ever now than ever before. Am I accurate in saying that?
I would say that, yeah. I mean, I'm still like I'm a little baffled because typically in the past, you'd put out a record and you'd tour the fuck out of it. And after You Come Before You, there was a lot of changes that happened with the band and the wave that we were riding. We missed that wave. The next wave that came up and a whole other crop of bands. And eventually, we put out 2 really eclectic different records that weren't really trying to appeal to anything that was popular at the time. We were just trying to satisfy ourselves creatively. And I feel like in terms of artistic expression, yeah, they're great. I love Versions and I love Tropic Rot. But in terms of trying to like give people something to like, not that we didn't do it necessarily. It's just we lost a lot of the elements that made our band popular. And I think that coming around to sort of the new record, I think we were able to take those interesting elements from those records, but also the things that like, I want to say that we abandoned, but like you put out a bunch of records, you want to do different things. And, when you want to do different things, there's a part of you that's like, no, I don't want to play double bass anymore. We don't want to do syncopated parts. We don't want to do this because we've done it. And then as you get older, you realize, no, that's like part of the thing that makes the cake. You need the baking soda, you need the fucking this, you need the that, whatever it takes to make a cake. You can't take those things out. You can introduce new things, you could put a different type of whatever fucking frosting on top or like sprinkles or whatever, but like you can't lose the things that make the cake itself, So yeah, so your original thing, because I go on these like long-winded fucking like things, and then I forget what the original question was. It's the original thing. Yes, we're the biggest we ever were. I'm surprised just because that last towards the end, it was like real sad, and me, Jeff, and Ryan didn't stop because we didn't want to stop creating with one another. It was just like, this is just not sustainable. Can't go on tour 8 months a year and make jack shit and be away from home, be away from family. Like we were dedicating so much time and energy to it. And it seemed like when we stepped away, maybe that hard work, maybe the records, I can't say because obviously I was part of the thing. It just kind of kept going and kept being a thing to where like people would forward me stuff. They're like, oh, you got like, fucking greatest hardcore records of blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. As I'm like working a normal job, transitioning back into playing music, it's just like, we would just get forward things and it'd be like, oh, that's nuts. Like, oh, okay. People kind of care because towards the end, it didn't feel like anybody gave a fuck,
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's got to feel good too, because so many bands, they have a moment, people lose interest to a degree, and then you're gone. Maybe you come back for a reunion show or a couple of reunion shows and that's it. But I saw Poison the Well when you guys came back. I remember that show at Gramercy, I think, with Candiria, 2016, I think that was. And I remember it growing. Like, I saw you at Furnace Fest in, I think, 2021, and you had the biggest, it was either 2021 or 2022, but you had the biggest crowd.
It was 22. We were supposed to play 2021, but we, like, COVID, health issues within the band, we had to cancel, and then they put us on the following year.
That's right. You had the biggest crowd out of anybody. And I remember looking around and being like, holy shit, wow.
I have a small theory about that, and it's going to sound like I'm big upping us, but like I'm not. I'm trying to be as like objective as I can, and I will attribute this to the strengths of my two creative partners, Jeffrey and Ryan. And I say this as just being the drummer that hits the stuff, that like objectively as Ryan being a creative partner and somebody that I deeply care about. Nobody puts melodies together like him. Like the way his brain thinks, the way he puts stuff, the way when he comes to me and he explains ideas to me. I mean, he is probably one of the most brilliant, uniquely creative people like I've ever met. There's only like one or two other people that like hold ground with him. And then with Jeff, it's like, I'm not a lyric guy necessarily. I more listen to how Jeff's rhythmic screams interact with the music when it's heavy. And then the melodies he comes up with, how they make me feel when it relates to the music, right? But then I read his lyrics, I'm like, oh, this is like, okay, I could see, I see why people connect with it, like I see what the thing is, So circling back is once again just being the guy that hits the drums, just like beats shit up in the background. I don't think anybody could replicate what they do, Like there's something that they uniquely do, just like as a Ben Wyman from Dillinger. Nobody can do what he does. That's his voice. And there's a reason why Dillinger can continue to go forever, whether they continue to go with Dimitri or Greg comes back. Probably not going to happen, but, or they go with another singer. There's like a very unique thing that certain people have that's not derivative and that's not like, doesn't get lost. And, my two, once again, my two creative partners, like when I look at them, I'm like, yeah, people can't do what you guys do, and like, I'm just stoked to be along for the ride,
Right. Well, you got to put yourself in there too. I mean,
I can't speak. It's not for me to speak about my role because I can't see my role. I just be like, throughout the years, obviously I've contributed, but I can't be like, yo, I'm the best. I'm like, it's not for me to, it's not up to me to tell the world what I am, Does that make sense?
That is true. But all right, I'll put you in there too, because when I think of great drummers in our scene, Chris, I think of you as one of them. So there you go.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, once again, that's not for me to say. That's for you and whomever else.
I'll say it. It's fine.
I appreciate it. I know I'm part of the formula. I'm just people don't care about drums, and it's okay. There's a small little world that cares about drums, but there's people that care about, like, I took this, I have this philosophy that Jeff is our mascot. People connect with lyrics and vocals, and I'm 100% cool with that. I don't want him to be our mascot because he's great. And same thing, like, people kind of connect with melodies and shit like that. They could, something that just kind of sticks to their brain, a cool guitar lick or a cool run or whatever, so.
Yeah. But have you heard that saying, I'm going to mangle it, but it's something like, you can be an okay band with a great drummer and be a great band, but you can't be a great band with an okay drummer and be a great band. Something to that effect. Have you ever heard those kind of slogans?
Yeah, no, I definitely heard that. Yeah, I think especially in like 2026, you have to be of like a certain level to even get in a room with good players. Just because, like, you go on Instagram and you go down whatever Drum Talk or the Drum like, there's just a bazillion fucking people out there that are like just phenomenal. They're just absolutely phenomenal players. So, like, why would you get the shitty drummer when you could just find the guy on TikTok or Instagram and be like, hey, do you want to come audition? It makes everybody have to, like, up their game, which is a good thing, I think.
Well, we have the new album coming, Peace in Place, our first in many years. So I'm excited. Many people are excited. I read that the recording process started in 2023, but that the band got inspired to start writing new material after we did an acoustic revisit of a song from Tear from the Red. Is that true?
Yeah. We had just been playing shows prior, and it was just no real talks of doing music. And then Jeffrey came to me and he's like, how do you feel about this? And I was like, yeah, I would absolutely love to get back in the studio with you guys, and just, even if it's just taking this song and reimagining it and reworking it, I was like, that sounds great. Because some of my fondest memories and most excited, the most excited I've ever been, it was when we were recording stuff and you could see stuff blossom and come to life. Even bands I've worked with and done stuff past that, it's cool. But it just has never had that same level of excitement, because I knew those two dudes were going to bring something really great. And it was going to be something that I couldn't even imagine that was going to, give me a dopamine splash.
So how does it start? I mean, are we together writing in a room? Are we sending things back and forth? How does the very beginning of the process start for this album?
It was definitely file sharing, because I, at least myself, have done a lot of file sharing with people I've worked with. It's the most practical, convenient thing, especially if you're doing a session for somebody across the US. They send you the files. I have a little studio set up so I can fucking play and send them the ideas, and they can be like, that's cool. What, try this. I don't like that, blah, blah, blah. And Ryan also lives in Los Angeles, but he's incredibly busy with his other profession, especially at the time. He was very, very busy. So it was a lot of doing the basic file sharing to get the thing going and get the thing, like, structurally there. And then him and I got together a few times to hit some sections where he had some ideas he wanted to try out, and him and I brainstormed about a few things. And then after that, we just, it was before we had like a manager or anything. Like, all our infrastructure was not there. So my friend Jeff Friedel, who plays drums, and like Devo in A Perfect Circle, has a home studio up in Van Nuys. So I was like, oh, we could record drums there. So I booked time with him. And then we had our buddy Nick Rowe, who's like worked with a bunch of people. He did, he produced and co-wrote with, for Greg Pachado's first solo record. That's how I met him. So we just lined, an engineer and then a drum room up, and then we just knocked it out. And yeah, it was like the final product. It was like, okay, this is cool. There's still something here. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel fake. And yeah, but to your original question, there was a lot of file sharing with a little bit of in a room to kind of tweak stuff just because of schedules.
Was that just demoing stuff, like those sessions you just mentioned, like initial demos?
Yeah, so the stuff, the file sharing was demos. And then in the room, obviously, was just in the room fucking around. But when we went to go record at Jeff's studio, and then we worked with Nick, that was the final version that made it on the box set that we put out. Because we've never released that song to any DSPs. You can only find it on the PTW box set that we put out like not last year, I think 2024, we put it out. It's on the rarities and the B-sides and all that stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. And then Peace in Place, that was all tracked with Will Putney, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everyone went out to New Jersey to do that with him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the guy that we eventually locked in that became our manager, this guy named Tom Williams, used to play guitar in Stray for the Path. He like manages Better Lovers, Counterparts, Us, Dying Wish, just a bunch of bands. He suggested to us, he's like, I know you guys like to think weird and work, super left of center stuff. He's like, but I think Will, if you guys are trying to recapture something, he's like, I think Will would be the guy. He'll help focus all of you and stop everybody from being self-indulgent, including me, because I have a tendency, and I know Ryan could probably speak to it. We have a tendency of like, let's get super weird and let's go down this weird road and this is super cool. And Will is fantastic for being like, that's cool, but not here, or like that part doesn't need to be 16 bars. It needs to be 8, shit like that.
Yeah. Is that, how is that process? Because I'm just thinking about my own band and how we beat our heads against the wall or with each other sometimes to be like, no, this. What is it like to just hand that over? I mean, do you listen to Will whenever he gives notes, and do you just go with what he says? Do you ever push back? Like, how is that dynamic?
So with Will, there's a reason why he's probably the biggest metal hardcore producer in our world. And there's a reason for that. You play something for him and he was like, that's cool. I think this should be this way. And at first you're like, I like that. I speak from a drummer's point of view. He's like, I feel like this part should be a little bit more, because I love the big fucking, the big eighth note snare hits, like the big Dave Grohl type stuff. And he's not into it. And sometimes he'd be like, I don't think that should be that. That should be more like this. And I would always like resist a little bit. But then when I listened to the playback after we were done doing a song, like, okay, yeah, that suggestion made sense. There was only like once or twice where I was like, no, this needs to be this way. And I still listen to it now. I'm like, okay, that was the right decision. But like Will's, his batting average is like insane in terms of like, when I listen to Peace in Place, I'm like, what he was able to get out of everybody and be able to focus us is less like, it's great. I mean, he's awesome. He's awesome to work with. He's fucking not a dick. He's very just like, and if you disagree with him, he's like, okay, cool. Like, if you're like, no, it has to be this. I know this. He's like, cool. There's not this arguing. He's not trying to manipulate you, but there's a lot of give and take, with him. And he's great.
Yeah. When I had Emma from Dying Wish on the show, she said he would come into the room and be like, this is good, change this, and sometimes she'd be like, no, and he'd be like, all right, it's your song. Like,
yeah, I mean, he's not going to argue with you if you're like, because I remember him saying like, everything has to come through the band. He's like, I could tell you that it should be this fill. I could tell you that I don't think that vocal melody works as good as it could be, or I could tell you that that bass line it's too busy, or this guitar part, it needs more. But if at the end of the day, if you're like, no, that's what it needs to be, he's going to push up until a point, but he's like, yeah, you can't just keep pushing. If somebody's absolutely adamant about something, it's just like, why are you hiring him? That's my thing. You're paying him money to do this thing because you trust his opinion, but then you don't listen to his opinion. It's like, it's just like nonsensical. So I always try to defer in the sense of like, okay, I know the things that I like, but I also know that the things that I like could be a little indulgent at times. Maybe they need to be a big thing for me. And it's most traditional. I'm sure you can attest to this. In hardcore, the bass drum is locked in with the guitar all the time. And that's a normal thing. It's a normal practice in our world. I don't like that. I don't want to be locked in with the bass drum all the time, or the guitar all the time. I don't want the guitar to dictate what I should do all the time. And, it took me a moment, but I listened to like Will's suggestions. I'm like, okay, that's more effective. When I could break away, sure, I'll do it, but it's not my default position. Now my default position is a little bit more like, okay, when we start something, I'm gonna lock that kick in with whatever Ryan's doing, and then from there, what can we move around, or does it even need to be locked in? Like the ending of Thoroughbreds, it's like he's doing a chug part, I'm not syncopating with it. I'm hitting like a caveman, but that's what it needs to be, essentially, So that's just like a simple example, but yeah, full long-winded answer back to yes, we listen to Will because Will knows what he's talking about.
And I want you to know I appreciate long-winded answers because this is a podcast and people want to hear from you. And I tell a lot of guests this. I've had guests who don't want to talk or give one-word answers, and that makes a very difficult show.
Yeah. I just have a tendency of losing it'll start with the thing. Yeah. And this is where my long-winded answer should go, and it just does this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what were we talking about? We're talking about something completely different from what you asked me, which is fine if it's like conversational, but like, you're asking a question. I don't want to like completely deviate and start talking about fucking Taco Bell or something stupid,
No, if that happened, I would just break in and I describe it as like bumper bowling, I'm the bumpers, you're the ball, and we keep it on track.
Yeah, there we go.
You mentioned the formula for Poison the Well, right? Getting older, realizing that to make a cake, you need certain ingredients, right?
Yeah.
So moving into Peace and Place. Now, yes, Versions and the Tropic Rot were departures. It's still Poison the Well. When you listen to it, when you listen to the root of it, it's still Poison the Well. But it's not the traditional metalcore, more chuggy stuff that we came to know from Poison the Well. So taking those albums into consideration, taking all the time off into consideration, coming back into consideration, was there discussion like, what are we going to do? What do we want to do? What should the vision for this album be before we're moving into recording it?
A lot of it was like negotiating with one another because everybody had a bit of a different perspective, and without having to get in too much of the details, a lot of it was being able to hopefully satisfy everybody's particular creative itch, but also collective itch of what the record should be, right? So like if we came back and we just put out this like ultra weird left of center record, yeah, there might be 5 people out there that might praise it. But like, I'm also making music. Yeah, I'm making music for myself. I'm making music for Jeff and Ryan and for us to be proud. But I also want to make something that connects with people. Like I want to make something that people really like and enjoy, and something that like, how would you say, something that like, because music is my language. I could talk and talk and talk, but like how I truly express myself is playing drums. And I speak through Ryan, I speak through Jeff in a lot of ways, and I feel like that's kind of like my particular way that like I get how I feel out there without, being some dummy on the internet screaming, that's how I choose to sort of do it. So yeah, I want us to be happy, but I also want to connect with people, and I want people to be like, man, I really appreciate that. This helped me through a dark time, or like, this really did this, or this really did that, like that to me is like the most important thing past the band coming back or the band being the biggest it ever was or whatever. Like all that stuff is cool. And I don't take it for granted at all. But the most important thing is to play a show and you could see people connect with what you do. Or somebody, sends you a message and like, yeah, this means a lot to me. This resonates with me. That's it, That's it for me.
What were your conditions for coming into Peace and Place? Like, what did you want to push forward or happen creatively?
My personal position, and, for clarity, I do not speak for Jeff and Ryan. They have their own positions, but mine was to satisfy what the band was and the strongest elements of the band's past without like sounding like we're just like rehashing old stuff. It was to like take those elements that we really liked and bring them into 2026 while also adding something new and like exploring a new space for the band. And like when you listen to Peace and Place, you could be like, oh, I hear Tear from the Red, I hear A Little Opposite, I hear Tropic Rot, I hear those, but it's not like, fucking cut copy over here. There's something new that's happening. There's we're telling a different story. That's how I've always talked about our records. They tell different stories. They tell stories of who was in the band at the time, who was participating with me, Jeff and Ryan, like where we were. That's why every record sounds different. And in a lot of ways that helped us, and other ways that worked against us, because especially back then, playing the game and being a little bit more accessible and all this sort of stuff helped you. But we were just kind of like, no, this is what we felt at the time. This is what Jeff felt. This is what Ryan felt. This is what I felt. At times Derek, because Derek was such a big part of the band, this is what Derek felt. But yeah, I would say that that's my thing, is just like, let's marry those things and tell a different story. You could hear certain things and like, oh, that sounds like it could be on Versions, or like, that sounds like it could be on Tropic Rock, but it doesn't sound like blatant ripoffs. It's different. Or we go somewhere new. We tell a new, different story. That was what I wanted it to achieve with it. And I feel like with everybody involved with the record, especially having Will, especially being back with Jeffrey and Ryan, like it was, yeah, I feel good. I feel like we not perfect, because nothing's ever perfect, but like I feel really good. So if we put the record out and everybody's like, this sucks, I'm like, well, whatever. I tried to do something and we got there and it just didn't work. And you fucking, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Like,
yeah. I think in general for bands, you want to be true to your fan base and true to yourselves, right? Like you have to find the perfect cross section of who are we as a band? Are we doing service to our audience? And are we being true to ourselves, right? And then you take into consideration the legacy of a band like Poison the Well. You take those factors in and say, like, who are we now and how can we responsibly put that into the legacy of the band? Like you just described what you wanted to get across. Now, could you come back and do Opposite Part 2? Yes. Would I personally recommend that? No, because it's not who you are anymore, and it is a time and place. And what I've heard so far in Peace and Place, I would say you have successfully taken that legacy of Poison the Well and what we know from those earlier records and mixed in those new elements too. Because when I first heard it, I wasn't like, oh, this reminds me of this song from Opposite. I was like, wait, what's going on? Wait. And then it's like, oh, wait, there's a breakdown. And I thought about it. And then I had to listen to it again to like really hear what was going on. So from what I've heard so far, I think what you described is coming across, and I'm excited to hear more, to hear what else is on there.
We're really excited to put the record out. I mean, it comes out in like 3 weeks. So, it's, on one hand, it's exciting. On the other hand, it's a little unnerving, but like I said, I feel confident that we were honest. We were honest with ourselves. And I think I think the fans of the band will respond to that.
When you think about the legacy of Poison the Well, is it ever annoying or off-putting to you that maybe people are gravitating towards one record, or like maybe people don't talk as enough about the later records? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm pretty indifferent, as who am I to tell somebody what resonates with them and what doesn't resonate with them. If somebody just likes Opposite, that's cool. You like Opposite, like regardless if that's 45-year-old me or 17, 18-year-old me, there's a part of you that is resonating with that. Just like there's people that like resonate with You Come Before You, or there are going to be people that resonate with Tear from the Red, or some people that resonate with Versions. Like, I mean, to me, if you like what we do and you appreciate what we do, then that's great. It's not my place to tell you, oh, you shouldn't like the old stuff, you should like the new stuff, or like, not my place.
Do you still have a connection to all the records? Do you still enjoy playing older stuff?
Yes and no. So if I'm to be quite frank, I feel almost next to no connection to Opposite. And it's not because I don't love the record. It's just I'm an incredibly different person than what I was when I was 17, 18. So I can look at it objectively and see myself in the playing, in, the orchestration of parts, the writing, because they're songs that like Derek and I wrote together. I was like, I got this fucking guitar part. He's like, cool, I got this guitar part, and I can kind of hear that in all that, and I can see all that, but I feel disconnected, and not in I don't like it. but just more like I'm a very different person now. So I feel like every record is one more step closer to feeling more connected to me just because it's closer to me. So I feel more connection to Tropic Rock because Tropic Rock was only 15, 16 years ago. Same thing with Versions. Versions is like 17, 18, something like that, maybe 19. Like, that was a long fucking time ago in human years, but still, it's like I feel more of the emotions of the time. Whereas the further back you go, it's like Turf from the Red's it's a blur to me. You know, same thing with Opposite. Distance is even the first EP, Distance Makes the Art Grow Fond. I don't even remember recording. It was so long ago. You know, it's like next year it's going to be like 30 years. It's just a blur. So yeah, it's more just like a gradient of how I feel of just like it's just, and maybe that's normal. I haven't had a deep conversation with anybody that's made records for 30 or 40 years in the same band that's had any level of success or any level of impact of being like, bad example, but I'll just, throw this out there. Hey, Mick Jagger, how do you feel about shit you were writing in the 60s? As like how 80, 70, 80 or however the fuck old he is, right? Like, I don't know what that's like. Maybe they'd be like, I feel like the same way I did back then because it meant something to them. Or maybe they're like, I don't even remember doing it. I don't even remember recording the record. Like, I have no idea, So yeah, it's a weird, yeah, I think I'm just getting old. That's really what I think it is. I'm just getting fucking old.
It's really interesting to think about because myself, and I think a lot of people don't have a 30-year legacy on a band to look back on. So each recording experience I've been a part of is unique in a way because each band was new. And I haven't been in a ton of bands. I've been in enough. So whenever I got in one and we finally got to the point of where we're recording, to a degree, it's burned in my memory because it's very important. But yeah, to look back and be like, yeah, I don't even really remember all of it. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not that I hate those songs. I don't hate any song off of Opposite, or I don't hate anything off of Distance or Tear from the Red or anything like that. It's just, I feel so disconnected because I'm just such an older dude. And my brain always thinks too, like how I could do things better. So it's like you play songs that you wrote when you were 17 or 18 and you're like, I could have performed this better. I could have orchestrated that part better. We could have written this better. That's just kind of how my brain works. So, we play some of these songs now and I'm like, man, I would never do that now. Like I did this then because I just didn't know any better. And it just so happened to work in a weird, strange way. But like, I would just never do that now, So it's kind of part of it too.
I have a memory. I want to ask you if I'm making it up or not. Now, we talked a long time ago. This was like a Mike Shaw house conversation. And that bell that you use on Opposite of December, did you get inspired to use that from the For the Love of full length?
For the Love of, why am I drawing a blank?
They're the metal hardcore band from New Jersey. They have all the like horror movie samples on the record.
Oh, no, it'd be Indecision.
Indecision? They use it?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, they would use it, but they used it in. I definitely like went a little overkill on that first record with the bell, like. Just kind of playing it whenever, and sometimes not even in time. Yeah, but it was Indecision. We played like random shows. I think we played with them at CB's. We also played with them in like the Virginia Beach. And obviously, Indecision at the time was a pretty well-known, reputable hardcore band. And I just remember being like, yo, that bell's fucking sick. And I bought one and I just abused it. Abused it all over Opposite.
Yeah, but I love it though, because I don't know. I just love it. And I For the Love of uses that bell too. And I was like, did I talk to Chris about For the Love of, or did I make that up? So now I can finally put that to rest. Thank you.
Yeah, Indecision. I would say it was more inspired by Indecision than anybody else.
Do you still have a connection to this music, like hardcore and all the subgenres? Do you listen to any of it still? Do you keep up with any of it?
Some of it. Yeah, some of the stuff that's like more, some of the stuff that's more emotionally relevant to me. That were part of like my formative years of getting into the music that like I listen today and I'm like, this shit's timeless. Like this was made in the late 90s, but this feels relevant now. Like Turmoil, The Process of, one of the greatest hardcore records ever made. Shout out to Steve Evans. I just spoke to him this morning, who I guess recorded and produced the record. Same thing, Hatebreed, Death is the Satisfaction of Desire. Hardcore Ramones, like it's one of the greatest hardcore records ever made. Same thing, Refuse, Shape of Punk and Come. Little burnt out, on it. It needs, I think it needs to go away for a little bit and rebubble back up. But that's one of the greatest hardcore records ever made, in my opinion. Stuff like that. It's like stuff that was like very impactful, unique, or was just like the Turmoil record. That's just like it's just a fucking bulldozer. The entire record's a fucking bulldozer. It doesn't need to be weird and artsy like Shape of Punk to Come. It doesn't need to be how Hatebreed is. It just needs to be a fucking bulldozer. And that's what it was.
Yeah, that is one I go back to all the time. I would say I don't get into a ton of new metallic hardcore bands or hardcore bands. Mm-hmm. There are exceptions, like Vane, Knocked Loose is really good, Turnstile. There's exceptions, but those classics...
Cool.
Yeah, those classics I will go back to. I don't listen to a ton of music. It's mostly limited to band practice now, or if we're on a tour or run of shows, we listen to a lot of stuff in the van because I'm just working all the time. I'm not sitting around listening to music like I used to, but yeah, I gravitate towards a lot of crossover, heavier shoegaze stuff or heavy post-hardcore with shoegaze influence. That's like my wheelhouse now. What about for you? Like, when you are listening to music, what do you gravitate towards now?
It's interesting because for me, it's less about genre of heavy, and it's more just like, what do I find interesting or what pulls me in that isn't like cheesy, I mean, if I look at my Spotify, what I've listened to recently. So I would say recently I've been listening to Chappell Roan, the song Good Luck Babe and Pink Pony Club, which are really good pop songs. She could fucking actually sing. She's like a legitimately like, I could hear the little details and like how she sings stuff in her phrasing. She could actually fucking sing. It's pretty insane. This band called Bad Nerves, they have a song called Antidote that's fucking awesome. They're like I think they're from the UK. I could be wrong, but they're just like just a straight, like just a punk band. Crosses, the song Sensation and the song Vivian, I've been listening to a lot. It's off their record. What the fuck is this record called? It was out in 2022. Well, those songs. Clams Casino, who is this like hip hop producer, but that does really interesting, unique beats. He has a whole thing of like instrumentals. That's really cool. More atmospheric. Listen to the new Converge song, which is pretty good. First song off the new Better Lovers record is really fucking great. The Lie Between the Lines. That's really awesome. This band called Summer Moon, which our bass player Noah played guitar in. It's the bass player for The Strokes. It's his side project. They have an EP out that's really cool. Billy Cobham, who was a jazz fusion drummer from the 70s that is just phenomenal. Turnstile, both records. Gojira. Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. Health, I like Health a lot. I think they're a really cool band. Yeah, Nine Inch Nails is cool. Flaming Lips are cool. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, nice eclectic mix of stuff.
Yeah, I play heavy music. I'm not trying to listen to heavy music. Unless it's like so weird and different. Unless it's just like pulling from somewhere and it's like hitting a particular nerve. It's not meant to be disrespectful because it just not for me at this point in my life,
No, that makes sense, because when we're done playing a show and we get back in the van, I'm like, I don't want to hear anything heavy. I like, just keep it away from me. It's too much.
You just get burnt out, man. You get burnt out, and I know my lane. I know what I like. I know what I'm into. I know what I want to, musically, what I want to mix together, and like, yeah, I like, electronic music, and I like some fucking singer-songwriter stuff, and I like some, whatever, was it post rock or whatever, that's like Isis and Cult of Luna and shit like that. There's certain things that I dig, but I'm not trying to listen to fucking, not a band, but I'm just not, I'm 45. I don't care.
I get it. In the writing process for Poison the Well, besides playing drums, of course, what do you get involved with? Do you contribute riffs ever still? Do you have a lot of say in arrangements? Do you ever look at lyrics and make suggestions? Tell us about everything you're involved with.
Earlier days, I wrote more riffs in through them. Like Opposite, there's quite a few moments on there that are my musical, like, hey, I got this thing. But it after a while, it kind of became real difficult to compete with Derek and Ryan because at the time they were like the dynamic duo in the band. And then once Derek left and it was just Ryan, it was even more difficult because of how his brain works with melodies and putting stuff together. It's just like, it's kind of offensive for me to come with him with some fucking power chords when he's like putting these like weird dissonant things together that like he plays it for me. I'm like, oh man, I feel that, like I feel it. I feel that thing in my soul. Whatever influenced you writing that is, that's not, but like that's deep. It's intense. Me come with some fucking stupid, not stupid, but you know what I mean? It's just like, I know my lane, as time has gone on, it was just more like, I'm trying to think each record, but it was more just like, yeah, this is the direction. Like I'm part of the overall, this is where we're going. Like, especially with Peace in Place, there was we are doing this. This is what we are doing. And this is where we're going. Overall, I would say at this point, it's overall vision. But like, I don't know, if Jeff is like, hey, what's a synonym to this word? Yeah, I'll give it to him, but he's the singer. He knows more than me. Like, if you wanted rhythm suggestions, sure, or if he wanted suggestions, like I said, like I'm having a hard time finding a word, I'll pop up or something pops in my head. Or if Ryan's like, hey, I have this thing, I think we should do it for 8 bars. I'm like, that's a 4-bar. That's a 4-bar part. I think it should be 4 bars, or that should be 16. Or like, where do we take this at the end? It's like, okay, cool. I think that this is where we should go. We try it. It works. It doesn't work. Stuff like that. But I don't want to be the guitar player. I don't want to be the singer. I want to be the drummer, and I want to have a say over the direction. And I want to have a say if I listen to something, I'm like, that should be longer. That should be shorter. I need to do more. You need to do less. You need to do more? I need to do less. That sort of thing. Like, I'm not a big fan of like the whole, you hire people and then you tell everybody what to do. Unless you're like some sort of crazy, phenomenal arranger and you just understand everything and you're constantly hitting home runs, that just becomes some sort of weird, you're being a weird controlling person. And that's not my nature. And I don't want to, just like the same thing with Will. I'm not going to tell Will, when he produced Peace in Place. When he made a suggestion, I listened to him because like, you're the producer. You do this all the time. Like there's certain things that I'll be like, I think it should be this, but like out of 100 times, it's like once or twice, and I'm usually very adamant about it because it needs to do this. I see what you were saying before and what your suggestions made perfect sense, but like this needs to be this, but like, no, you be the producer, not here to, we're not paying you a bunch of money and have a bunch of respect for you to then tell you how to do your job. That's like crazy. It's just like, but people do that, like people, it's a thing, I'm like, I just want to be the drummer. I just want to play, have a say over the direction, have an input, have a vote, because Poison Well's a democracy. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like if 2 outvote 1, and sometimes I'm on the losing end, sometimes Ryan's on the losing end, and sometimes Jeff's on the losing end. That's the way it goes. Has
that happened where you're like, no, I want it to be 16 instead of 8, and everyone's like, no, 8, and then you just have to kind of do the 8?
Of course.
Yeah.
My whole thing is, at the end of the day, I want to make a good record. I don't want to satisfy my ego. I don't want to be right all the time. I want to do the right thing. Whatever is in service of our record, of our band. That's how I look at stuff. I don't need to be right all the time. My identity is not attached to being right all the time. I'm not going to be right all the time, just like everybody else isn't going to be right all the time. So,
well, you've heard the slogan, right? Do you want to be happy or do you want to be right?
There you go. Yeah. Same thing. I might be bummed for like a second, and then I get over it. It's just like you move on, and then you get used to what's there, and you're like, oh, that's cool. That's cooler.
That's one lesson I had to learn, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is it. It has to be this. And I had to learn, you have to actually try everybody's ideas, because someone might have an idea and you're like, that sounds horrible. There's no way that's going to be good. But then you try it and you're like, wait, that is good. That's better. So we have a rule like try everything and see what works best in service of the song.
Yeah, that's something that Jeffrey advocates all the time, that we learned from working with the Swedes, the guys that did You Come Before You, they did Versions, they did Shape of Punk to Come. And it's funny because Jeffrey was just like, because the producer Pele always advocated that, but Jeff was like, we learned this from him, and I think he's like, it's a great rule to have. We try everything, but he's like, I also think that he was always trying to put that forth, so we would just do his ideas, and then it'd be like, great, you did my idea, we're moving on. It was more of like being persuasive, maybe a little bit manipulative, but like if you take the core of it, you try all the ideas and whatever is the best thing you go with, I think it's great.
Oh, I wanted to ask you this. Okay. You've done session work, right? A lot of session work, that type of thing. All right. I'm particularly interested in this for drummers, especially because I mean, it's hard for anyone to jump in and just learn something or do something or play something. But like for drums in particular, I feel like it's difficult. For you, Chris, all right, let's say tomorrow I have studio time booked and we're going to record this LP, right? You're going to fly in and we're going to show it to you. We have 5 days and we're going to record this LP. Like, can you do that? Can you learn it quickly? Can you jump in and get things done on a time crunch like that?
Yeah. What I would say is it depends the complexity of the material. Is that material in my wheelhouse? How difficult are the arrangements? If you're hiring me for me and I go there and it's within my skill set, then yeah, we play each section a bazillion times until we find the pieces that we need and we put it together. We move on to the next section. At that point, it doesn't become about, if you have 5 days to do something and you want me to do it, it doesn't become, it's like, at that point, it's not about ego, about me learning the songs and playing the songs completely through. It becomes about what do we need to do to get this done in a timely manner? That's what I've learned. Like in the past, my ego would be like, oh, I need a certain amount of time to learn all this material and try out different ideas and blah, 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 blah. And I've been very fortunate where most people, bands, artists have given that to me. And I've shown up. We've knocked the drums out really quick with complete takes, with like minimal punches, minimal editing. And it's awesome. And I feel great. And I feel like I did that and that was awesome. But like, I don't care. I show up. If we need to do shit in sections because I don't know the songs, then that's what we need to do. Who cares? Like it's in service to a band or an artist paying me a certain amount of money to come in and give them what they want.
Yeah. I also still think in the old school where it's like you have to do one complete whole take of the song, especially on drums, because you can punch in drums, but that's not the case anymore.
I mean, if you could learn everything, if you're like a super freak human that can like remember the entire arrangement and remember the kick and snare patterns and remember the fills, and you just have that like insane memory, which there are guys out there that have that and they could do that. And that's why they're out on tour with some of the best, I would say best, but the biggest artists and the biggest bands, because on the fly they can come in, they can learn it and they could play it. I don't have that good of a memory. I'm fucking ADD as fuck. So what works for me is hyper focusing. Like, here are the songs. Okay, I'm going to go to my studio every day and I'm going to grind these out and I'm going to come up with fucking cool parts. And I just drill it into my brain. So when I show up, it's like that. But like I said, like if your band was paying me to come out and you're like, we don't have a lot of time and here are the songs, you would play the songs for me and I'd be like, hey, I'm not your guy. You want too much in too little of a time. I can't learn this that quick. You should go to so-and-so or you should go to so-and-so. Or I could be like, cool. Yeah, I can learn this, but just so you know, we're going to be doing sections because, maybe I'm learning this shit completely on the fly, but that's what it is. And some people are purists. I kind of don't care because once again, I don't feel like I need to prove anything. I've done it once. What I've learned is once you've done it enough times and you've done complete takes with minimal punches, you're like, why am I suffering? Why am I'm suffering just for myself? Nobody cares. Do you think the people listening to the record give a shit? No, nobody gives a fuck. They're just like, that sounds cool. So it's like, I forget who the fuck it was. I heard, I'm going to butcher this. And it has nothing to do with hardcore, but it's something about Chris Rock was talking to Jack White about his recording process. And Jack White was like, I do this and I do this. And it just sounded horrible. And it just sounded painful. And it just sounded like, unless doing those things elicits a feeling that you could translate into the music and get across in the record that is so paramount that you need to do it that way, nobody cares. And that's basically what Chris Rock said to Jack White. He's like, hey, bro, nobody fucking cares. They just want to hear the song. They don't care that you suffered at all. They just want to hear the song. And I was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, if you're doing it in a certain capacity that like you need to suffer, or you need to feel this thing, or you need to feel that thing because it is paramount in recording, then we're having a different conversation. But with the way modern recording techniques work, we're not doing it that way. Drums are being recorded as close to the click as possible, or if they're not that close, everything's being gridded. So it's like you're doing sample replacement, sample blend, and it's like, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, because people don't hear all that stuff unless you're some kind of crazy engineer, So I'm with you. Unless that passion and torture somehow translates into the music and gives some kind of feeling, just do it. Get it done.
Yeah. If I could do complete takes, I will. If I can't, and you're giving this shit to me like right in the moment, this is how we're doing this. Because at the end of the day, when you listen to the playback after we've punched everything and we've tweaked like fills to work better with the arrangement that I'm hearing in that moment, you're going to be like, the drums sound awesome. And that's how a lot of people do it. Some people don't even have the drummer play on the recording. They just program everything and the drummer learns it and they play it live. That's modern. That's how, because that's just some band. That's just how some bands do it, and that's cool. That works for them, and the drummer doesn't give a fuck. And maybe he's the one that's sitting there programming everything and being like, "This is awesome," and I don't have to play it. It's cool too. It's whatever the final product. When you listen to the final product of the record, the EP, the single, and you're like, "This is awesome." That's the only thing that matters.
Right. So this will be airing the week that Peace in Place comes out. Tell the people. Give them your mission statement for the LP. What can we expect? What do we hope to accomplish? Tell the people.
I hope you care, because we care. As the simplest way of putting it. No, I mean, we give a fuck. This band means a tremendous amount to us, and we put a lot of time, thought, and energy into this, and we all did suffer a lot. Even though the recording may not sound like we suffered from a production point of view, it's a very big, Will's big, huge production. There's a lot of suffering under the surface that I will not talk about. And, it means a lot to us. And we hope that it means a lot to the people that listen to it. It's not just something that they're like, this is cool. And, we hope that it's something that will actually mean something to people down the road, and it connects with them.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I'm happy to have you back on the show. I'm happy that Poison the Well is back. And back with a new record, because I didn't think it would ever happen, because I've been talking to you at various points on this show for...
Me neither.
Yeah.
Me too. I didn't think we'd have a record either.
Yeah, it's like, are we going to do it? I don't know. Maybe, but it's here. It's coming. I'm excited. And Chris, I just want to say thank you. I've been listening to you a long time. I'm very excited to hear the rest of the new record. And thank you. Thank you for coming back on the show.
I appreciate it. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. And, hopefully we will do this again, and hopefully people like the record. And I didn't sound like too much of a straightforward, brash person, because that's kind of what I do sometimes. I just say stuff.
All right. We've got Vadim Taver back on the show. Vadim, welcome back.
What's up, Keith?
Great to have you here, Vadim. How long has it been since you've been on the show? A year? 2 years?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's been at least that long, 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, I think that This Day Forward episode was the last one. But in either case, it's great to have you back here. There's a lot to catch up on. And very exciting news. Poison the Well has Peace in Place coming out later this month. I'm excited. Many people are excited. You've got a busy year ahead of you. And I'm excited to talk to you about that and other things. But Vadim, first I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, just getting a bunch of stuff done, and we're getting ready to leave. So it's been knee deep in rehearsals, basically like 4 or 5 days a week.
Oh, that much?
Yeah, because we're playing all these new songs for the first time. So normally I don't think it would be as many, but since we've got all these new songs to basically play as a band for the first time, we're trying to run through them many times to make sure that they're on par and as tight as the other ones.
Yeah, you said yesterday 3.5 hour practice.
Yeah, that was a long boy.
I was actually glad that we rescheduled, because we also had a long practice. Like, I was at a long practice when you texted me, and I was going to have to summon all of my strength and courage for us to get through the interview last night. And then you were like, hey, can we do it another day? I was like, yes.
Yeah, nice.
There's a lot of work. It sounds like you're up to a lot and I'm up to a lot. But Vadim, we're about to embark on this big Poison the Well Converge tour. I was very excited when Jake told me that was happening because even better than one good band on a tour, Vadim, two good bands. Am I right?
You are right. Yeah. It seems that that's kind of the way to go to also get people more excited about your tour as well, right? Because if they see one band, they're like, I guess we could go. Or if it's a band they'd seen a bunch, they're like, maybe we'll go. But then when it's like 2 or 3 bands that they want to see, then you're more likely to come out. So it makes sense.
Exactly. That's something I talked about with Chris as well, who I just spoke to. He said that Poison the Well is trying to curate these tours more as an event. And I really think that was achieved last year with that other tour, because a rare occurrence. I wanted to see every single band on that tour. Who was it? Teenage Wrist, Better Lovers, Glassjaw, and Poison the Well. What a lineup.
Yeah, that was a good tour. I think that was the biggest headlining tour Poison the Well had ever done.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of firsts for Poison the Well right now. First new record in a very long time. Big tours. I think they're seeing the biggest popularity they ever have right now, right?
Yeah. The band is definitely at the height of all time, like at the height of the popularity of all time, which is crazy because, I mean, the band's been together for 30 years, or almost 30 years. So it's kind of crazy to be in, and I've seen the growth myself from 2016 when I first started playing with the band, and the shows were always good. There was always people at the shows, but just to see them just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I love it. Let's recap for the people, Vadim. When did you start playing with Poison the Well? How did that come together?
So 2016 was my first time playing with the band. Me and Chris had reconnected when he moved out to California around 2010 or so, 2011. I can't remember exactly when he moved out, but we actually ran into each other at a Converge show, at a Converge and Coalesce. We're playing a Chain Reaction, and we started doing some music together. And so we played some music for a little while. It didn't really go anywhere because we were struggling finding a singer for a long time. And then,
what was that? Was that an original project you guys were working on?
Yeah, we had more than a full length's worth of songs. I mean, we had, I think, like 13 songs or something like that, and we tried out a bunch of different people, and I think we almost had it, but it wasn't really working out. And so Chris backed off at a point, after, understandably, because after a while it wasn't working, and so he probably pursued other things at the time. But then when Poison the Well had started talking about reforming, I guess I was on his mind, since we had played together and he had grown to know me more as a musician than just when we toured together and just hearing me play This Day Forward back in the day. So he presented it to the guys, and then that's how I got on board.
I'm curious about this full length that never came to be. Do you now you're pretty prolific. You've been in a lot of bands, you've written a lot of stuff, you've collaborated with a lot of people. Do you have a good amount of material that has just never seen the light of day?
Yeah, quite a bit. A bunch of bands that we recorded things and then like maybe couldn't find a singer, so I have tons of instrumentals. I also have tons of home recordings. I have a bunch of internet projects. Just a bunch of stuff sitting around.
Do you ever think about unearthing some of that stuff and trying to find somebody to sing for it and doing anything with it?
Yeah, occasionally. So there's actually a few songs now that I'm trying to kind of work with other people on that have been sort of sitting around for a while. So it's funny that you say that. I'm actually trying to do that right now. I don't know how serious any of those projects will be, but there's a few songs that I really, just want to finish up, just to maybe like put them up on Bandcamp, or just to put them out into the world.
Okay, so you're playing with Poison the Well. Do you remember the first show you played with them?
Yeah, the first show, so it was a series of shows because we were doing East Coast dates and then West Coast dates. So the first show ever was at the Gramercy in New York City with Candiria, which you may have been there.
I was there. Awesome.
Yeah, that was my first show. My brother came, my mom came, you were there. That was 2016.
Nice. How was that first run of shows for you?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, they were in segments. So at the time, I think we just flew out to the East Coast. We played New York, and then I think we did some Canadian shows. And then later there were some shows in South Florida, and then there were some shows in California, but they were all kind of spread out over the course of like 2 months or something like that. So, at that point, that was pretty different from what I had was used to doing before, which is getting in a van and driving and playing a series of shows all consecutively. But these ones were kind of like spread out over the place. And it was interesting because we were like flying from show to show and then like renting gear to play on. We just basically brought our guitars and pedal boards, and then Chris brought some of his drums. But I was definitely not used to doing that except for the times when I'd gone to Japan.
Is it expensive to rent gear for stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's definitely not cheap. It's probably more now than it ever has been. But I think that there are deals that Poison Well might have with certain rental companies. I'm actually not even entirely sure, but I know we've worked with certain rental companies more than once. So I imagine maybe there's some kind of relationship there that makes it a little bit more affordable.
All right, so you're touring with Poison the Well now. Before that initial run of shows, when was the last time you were in a band that was touring regularly?
I had filled in for a few tours, so I'm not sure if that answers your question as far as regularly goes. So I played with Colin in his project Psychic Babble in 2013, and we had done an entire tour opening up for Anthony Green. So I think that may have been the last series of shows that I had done. I played with Taken and I played with Makoto just for a couple tours and going to Japan with them. But aside from that, as I was saying, it was kind of just like trying to do a bunch of different projects that never really took off. And then I went back to school. And then when I went back to school in 2015, there was a period of time where I wasn't doing music at all. So with Poison the Well, it sort of kind of like brought me back to playing in bands.
How did it feel coming back into that? Did you like it? Is that something that you wanted to do again?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's definitely manageable when it's part-time. That's really nice. And I don't think at this point anyone's really interested in touring like 9 months out of the year or something like that. So it's much nicer for it to be a part-time thing at our age, especially now that Jeff just had a kid. I'm not sure if Chris told you that. And then Noah, our bassist, he's a dad also. So it's nice when it works with everybody's schedules just here and there sporadically.
Yeah. And with you, Vadim, it sounds like you've always kept up with music in one way or another, like whether it be your own bands touring or whether it be collaborations with other people or whether touring with other bands. It sounds like you've just always been doing it.
Yeah, to an extent, except like I said, when I was at school, it kind of took a back seat for a little while, but also I worked, quote unquote, in the music industry for a while too, because I worked for Smart Punk for 4 years when I first moved out to California, and then I worked for Revelation Records for 6 years also. So I guess in a way that sort of kind of kept me looped in.
Did you ever feel like separated from it? There's been periods where I've been more focused on work, or there's been years where I haven't been in a band or played a show and I just felt really distant from it and like I would never get back to it. Have you ever felt like that?
Yeah, it's like when I went back to school as an adult, I was taking it really seriously. And as an adult, I was working still while going to school. And so I was doing my classes in the evenings. And then I had to spend a really long amount of time doing homework. And so I had to sacrifice, whereas before I would be like, well, I'm going to this show, I'm going to this show, or, I definitely, there was a period where I was like, I can't do this. And it would be very rare for me to get out and actually go to shows and to go out and like play music with people and even play music at home with myself. So yeah, I mean, there was a period of time when I wasn't doing that.
In your touring with Poison the Well, when did you hear that a new album was coming? And what was your reaction to that?
To answer your question, I guess 2024 is when I first heard. I think that was when it was first talked about with the guys. And, I know, Derek was on board. They wanted to do a record with him, which ultimately ended up not working out.
So what is your part in it, Vadim? I know you were in the studio towards the end of the record being wrapped up. Like, tell us about some of that experience. Tell us about some of your experience as the record is getting made.
So I wasn't a part of the writing process. Ryan and Chris and Jeff worked together, and they've had a collaborative partnership writing together, for a long time. And so, yeah, I was, I'd be curious if they would bring me on, but I also didn't really want to kind of like overstep my boundary. And I just figured if they wanted me involved in the writing process that they would ask. And so I wasn't involved in the writing or the recording of this record yet. But I was able to, hear the demos as the demos were getting made, to hear the pre-production when Ryan was first down there and writing with Will, and then Chris showed me parts as we were doing things for shows. Like we would meet up to play a show, and he'd be like, "You want to hear what we got so far?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to hear them." So I heard the songs as they were being developed throughout the process, and then at the very end of the recording session, me and Noah were there because we were about to leave for Europe. And so we actually rehearsed at Will's Putney's house before we had left for Europe when the finishing touches were being put on the album. So it was kind of cool to actually be there and to hear some of the music being played that was being recorded for the record, and Jeff was putting finishing vocal touches on it. And then of course, we sat and listened through a bunch of the record when we were there too. So it was exciting to hear it, especially not having been there through the recording process, through the majority of it.
Yeah. Well, what was your reaction when you heard that new music from them? Me, I was very excited when I heard that they put out a new song because I didn't think they'd ever do it. I didn't think they would ever record new music. I don't think even they knew last time I spoke to Chris on the show prior to this time, which was 3 years ago, maybe. So I was happily surprised. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, the first song, Trembling Level, which was the single that was released last year in 2025, I thought was a super strong song. And I think that the reaction that I had seen for the most part had been pretty positive. I think that people were, happy that it how it is when bands go away for a long time and then they come back, it's really a crapshoot. Sometimes it works out really well and sometimes it doesn't. And I think for the most part, I've seen pretty positive reactions to all of the new music starting from Trembling Level last year. So I was excited to play that song particularly. And then some of these new songs that we're playing, I'm very excited to play because they're really strong songs and they're challenging, and to hear them is one thing, but then like to actually for the last week when we've been rehearsing them and to hear them performed live, it's a really cool feeling. Like, oh wow, this sounds powerful, this sounds good. I think people are going to be into it.
Yeah. When do you put in your 40 hours? Like, is the album done and they say, all right, Vadim, here it is, learn it? Tell us about how that process worked.
So it's always been a one-on-one process with Ryan and myself as far as him showing me what to play. So either I ask him if he can send me a video of him playing along to something and maybe breaking down part by part, or I go over to his house and he'll show it to me, and sometimes I'll just take a video of him playing, and then then when I'm at home I kind of break it down and I write out the tablature for every song. So I actually have tablature written out for every Poison the Well song that I've ever played, both to read along while I'm learning the song, but then also to reference back in case we go back to a song we haven't played in a long time, or just to refresh my memory. So yeah, it always starts with just Ryan and I, and then I'll make notes for myself. I'll write out the tablature, and then when we go into the rehearsal space, everyone's already prepared and knows what to do. I think Noah, for this record or for the new songs that you're doing, I think he may have got the stems, so he was able to isolate his bass track and just probably learned it by ear from the bass track.
How much time do you spend with it? How much time does it take you in this particular instance? I had to do this a couple times in my musical history, and the last time was really hard. How long did it take you?
Well, to learn the songs, not too long. I mean, I would sit there and as I would tab it out, I'd be rehearsing through it. So I guess like learning the song, it wouldn't take too long, but then I rehearse them daily, so that when we perform them live, I don't have to be thinking about like what's the next part, and just kind of like be in the moment of playing and not have to like concentrate super hard. The muscle memory kicks in at that point. So my general rehearsal time is probably about an hour a day. And a lot of that is due to my limitations of my wrist. So I had a wrist injury a couple years ago. That is essentially it's it's a symptom of getting older. But I have to do a lot of things now to kind of like keep up on physical therapy so that I'm able to use my wrist. And it's not just for playing guitar. I mean, I have issues like opening doors and opening jars and things like that, like rotation things. So I try not to overdo it. While I could play for longer, I figure that if I spend about an hour a day and I do that for, probably about a month or two leading up to like actual rehearsals, then I'll be pretty prepared. I don't have to go for like 4 hours a day. I could just do 1 hour, but make sure that I stay consistent.
Yeah. What happened to your wrist? What was the injury?
I don't know the cause. That's the really frustrating thing is there wasn't any particular thing that had happened. But at a certain point in 2024, I realized that I was having some kind of like really weird pain. And I was able to finish. It actually happened while we still had some shows going on. We did this Headbangers Boat cruise. And then when I got back, I realized that the pain was getting more and more severe, and it was to the point where I was starting to have serious issues with my hand, like not being able to move my fingers as quick as they were before. And then, as I mentioned, the certain rotations were very painful. So I started going to, I went to the doctors. I actually had a ton of tests done. I had like a nerve testing done to make sure it wasn't carpal tunnel, which it wasn't. I was going to OT, occupational therapy, twice a week and doing home exercises. I went and got x-rays and CAT scan and all this stuff. So what was determined, it's something called decorvanes tenosynovitis, which is essentially it's a type of tendinitis where my a certain tendons in my wrist are sitting on underneath this sheet that they rub against it and cause irritation. And I mean, I even tried getting like cortisone shots, like the steroid shots, which didn't seem to really do anything. So the main thing that I need to be conscious of to make sure that I don't hurt myself is to make sure that I do like these exercises, So I have things that I bring with me on tour now. So I have like a golf ball, and I'll rotate the golf ball along a table to sort of massage the inside of my palm. I have like a Theragun, like a heated massage gun that I use on it. I ice it after playing it. Oh, and then just various other exercises that I learned through occupational therapy that kind of helped me get back on track. But yeah, it was pretty scary for a while, to be honest with you. I didn't really want to worry the guys, but there was a period of time where I was legitimately worried that I wasn't going to be able to perform, perform well, perform like at a level where I felt comfortable. But I'm glad it all worked out. So yeah, so nowadays I'm treating myself in the things that I've learned from the therapy, and just moving forward, hoping it doesn't get worse, which it shouldn't if I continue on the regimen.
Yeah, that's scary, because I hurt my wrist recently, and now whenever I like open a window, it like kind of hurts, or if I lift weights or do push-ups, sometimes it hurts, and I'm like, oh no, is this the beginning of the end? But look, if my hand gets crippled, it's fine. I'll just get someone else to play guitar, and I'll just be the singer. Easy.
There you go. I can't do that in my role, unfortunately, because I am the guitar player. But yeah, and then I also found, so I have like various wrist bands like this that I bought that just sort of put some compression on it, and I find that's also helpful. It sort of like helps keep it in place so that I don't move it in a weird way spontaneously, and then also just it feels good too. So I try to wear this as much as possible. I've been wearing them at practice the entire time I've been playing, and it seems to help also because practices have been going longer than my practices at home. And so I'm glad I have these tools to kind of help me get through it.
Right. It gets harder. The first Darling Fire practice I did, we played the whole set 3 or 4 times. And by the 4th time, the same thing happened to me that happened to Gary, where like my whole hand went numb. And it wasn't as bad where like I couldn't play at all, but it was getting there.
Yeah, the numbness is scary. The numbness I think is tied to carpal tunnel, which is a nerve issue, and that one is particularly scary because you can't really do physical therapy to really help relieve the pain of that. I think that might require surgery. I mean, decorvains technically is also in the same category where you probably need to have surgery if you want to have it cured, quote unquote, but it's not even guaranteed that it will. So and I, I don't really want to particularly get into surgery, so I'm just doing whatever I can to just kind of like help my symptoms. And then the other thing too, and I know, Keith, that you've also been doing more like exercising, like trying to stay in shape a little better. So that's one thing that I've never done before is weight training. I've never really like I've been into bike riding and swimming and running at points in my life, but I only within the last year I've really started to kind of like do like some barbell training and then using the machines at the gym and things like that, because what I understand is that if you build up your muscles, then you can take some of the load off of, like, let's say a single tendon that you were using before to perform an action. And all of the tendons around it will take some of the load off and make it easier to do. So that's kind of what I've been doing, as well as with the weight training, kind of helping.
Is that helping? I do 30-pound dumbbells. I do a whole routine with those once a week. How about you?
Yeah, it helps a lot. I don't do 30. Mine is less because I had to basically start from complete scratch of doing those. So the loose barbells, I'm doing 15, and then the machines, the various weights for depending on which muscle groups I work out. But yeah, it seems to be helping.
Yeah, I started at 10 or 15. I went down. I was like, no, that's too light. So I went up one. And I was like, okay, that's good. And I've built up to 30 over the past 2 years that I've been working out. And I wanted to get to 40. I don't know why. I was like, I'm going to get to 40. So I went up to 35. And then I really hurt my back. So I'm just staying at 30 because I'm not going to like bulk and become a weightlifting guy. So I'm just going to do 30 and do my routine. I just want to maintain what I have.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I'm not trying to get all jacked. I just basically just want to keep myself from getting injured further.
Exactly. Well, I've got a whole list of interesting poison the well topics here, but I'm just going to fire some of these off, and you give us your experience. Weezer guitar picks. I want to hear about this.
Okay, so on the Glassjaw tour, we had a friend of mine named Alex, who came out to Guitar Tech with us, and he's been out with a whole bunch of other bands before. He's out with Spoon. He's been out with a ton of bands, but one of the bands that he went out with before was Weezer, and he started with Brian. He was Brian Bell's Guitar Tech, and now actually he's moved up. He's actually River's main Guitar Tech now, so that's like the main band that he works for. But he had all these Weezer picks from the last tour that he brought with him. I don't know how, maybe they were just left in his work box. And like, how bands like throw out picks sometimes to the audience, like if they're kind of like crappy picks or just whatever, or for like as a souvenir or whatever. Well, like at some point in the tour, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I just start throwing out Weezer picks into the crowd, just like solely for the reason of somebody posting it and then like me getting a whiff of it, just from someone being like, why are Poison the Well using Weezer picks? So pretty much just for fun, I just started doing that. And so there may be somebody that received a Weezer pick from me on that tour.
I love that. No, I like that kind of stuff. Like when I was playing bass in the Darling Fire, my friend Brad, who plays bass in Interpol, he gives me a pick. He's like, here, use this. I only use these picks when I play with Interpol. And I was like, okay, but I think I lost it. I don't have it anymore.
What's funny is I wasn't even playing the Weezer picks. I basically just had them to throw out, like, because the picks that I use are just, they're not like, they don't say anything on them. They're just like standard like Dunlop picks or whatever. So like if I throw them to somebody, they're not going to be anything special. Like it's just going to look like a regular guitar pick. So then I figure like, okay, well the Weezer picks, at least there's something on them and someone will get a kick out of them. But yeah, no one's hit me up about this Weezer pick thing, which kind of a bummer.
That makes it even funnier that you have them just to throw into the crowd.
Yeah.
I talked about this with Chris as well. That Brooklyn Paramount show where it was sold out and they brought out the cake and the plaque and everything. Now, For some reason in my head, I thought Brooklyn Paramount was like a newer venue, but apparently it's been around for a long time because the Poison the Well plaque was up there with what, like Etta James and like all of these old school like classic artists.
Yeah, like Miles Davis and Billie Holiday and like all these artists dating back to I think the 1930s or maybe even earlier than the 1930s. So yeah, it was kind of funny because I was going through the wall and I was looking at all these huge names, like recognizable names that are like part of pop culture and have like Grammy awards and all this stuff, and then like just to see like Poison the Well there is just, it's almost comical, but it's cool. It's really flattering.
Yeah, it was really something to be backstage and see that. Like you showed us the plaque, and then I saw the cake, and then Chris told me a story about it was either him and Ryan or him and Jeff. Like they saw the plaque and they were just like, "Yeah, we did that." Like I just like that they had that moment.
Were you there when they did like a little ceremony for us?
I don't think I may have gotten there after that.
Okay, yeah, they did. It was like, it wasn't anything crazy, but they had like, they had us line up against the wall or whatever, and then they took a video of them like kind of putting it up, and then yeah, I think they just grabbed some photos and stuff. I imagine they probably do that with all of the bands that get one.
On that tour, you had a person with you to specifically handle social media stuff?
Yeah. His name's Shane Smith, and he's incredibly talented, super talented dude. I actually knew him from a while back, kind of. He was, a friend of a friend, and we'd hung out, but I didn't really remember him until we had reconnected. But yeah, he was on our bus, and he was hired through our management, who also managed Better Lovers, or manages Better Lovers. And so he did, every day he would take photos and videos during our set and during Better Lover set, as well as, just whatever else like throughout the day. And so, yeah, it was essentially like somebody that documented the entire tour. And then he would sort of set up a station in the back of the bus where he would work for hours after the shows. And then by the time the morning comes, he would have these recaps of the night before. They're usually about, 30 seconds to a minute long for, Instagram and whatever. And they were cool. They were always really cool to see. And I'm sure that the people that attended those shows probably got a kick out of seeing the recap for their show, the one that they attended.
That was really impressive. I remember seeing those, and it would be the day after the show. And I was like, wow, they must send all this stuff to somebody right after the show or something. And those reels were really slick. They looked really good.
Yeah, he was working on them sometimes till like 4 a.m, 5 a.m, because he was doing ours and Better Lovers every night, and or during the day sometimes, and then at nighttime. So he really worked hard, and I think that he's very good at what he does. I think he's exceptional.
Absolutely. You guys randomly ran into Cannibal Corpse on tour?
So we had a day off. I think it was Atlanta. I can't remember exactly which city, but we had a day off, and we got a hotel where dudes can go and shower, right? Like you usually get a day room on a day off. So we were pulling into this hotel, and then we see like another bus with a trailer, right? And so we're like, oh man, that's got to be a band. It has to be, right? So we pull up next to them, and at a certain point, we saw someone walk off of their bus, and I think they had like, they look like a rocker dude, right? Like you could spot them a mile away, right? Like they got tattoos and whatever. So you're like, okay, this has to be a band, because we weren't sure at first, but then we were like, okay. And then so we're like, well, how do we figure out who it is? So like, I'm not going over there. Like so someone, I don't remember who, it could have been even Shane. I don't remember who it was, but someone made contact with them, and we found out that it was Cannibal Corpse. And Cannibal Corpse, they had a day off also, because they were on tour with, I think it was Meshuggah and Carcass. They were doing a full US tour, and they just happened to be where we were at the same hotel on the day off. And so their crew and our crew ended up like buddying, because I think I'd left for the day. I think I went and I got picked up and like went out with some people, but I was told later that they had like a barbecue set up that they bring with them, the Cannibal Corpse crew. And so they took that out. And so like they were like, grilling burgers and hot dogs and stuff. And then a bunch of our crew were hanging out with the Cannibal Corpse crew. Kind of random that those kinds of things happen. But they, from what I was told, they knew who Poison Well were, which is kind of cool. But also, I guess not that surprising, because it's somewhat of the same scene. It's still like heavy heavy music, but also they are from Florida, so it wasn't that surprising, I guess.
That's legendary. Cannibal Corpse, Poison the Well split when? Universe. Give it to us. Imagine how epic that would be.
We'll do it for the next Ace Ventura movie.
You got to play the Electric Factory on that tour.
Yeah, well, which is Franklin Music Hall now, right? Isn't it weird to call it that?
It still is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if any locals actually even call it Franklin Music Halls. It's kind of like, maybe it's like the sign of a noob where you're like, we played the Franklin Music Hall. Yeah, that was crazy, Keith. You know, I think a lot of times now I don't like concentrate too much about the significance of something, you know, just kind of like it's just happening. I'm just in the moment with it, you know, but every now and then something happens where I'm just like, wow, this is a really cool life moment, you know, a really cool full circle moment. That one particularly was for me because growing up in, you know, Philadelphia and then the surrounding areas, I'd gone to the Electric Factory. I mean, I don't even, dozens of times, right? Dozens of shows as a teen, and then later in my 20s. And I remember when I was younger, like one of the first shows I saw there was Blink-182 with Unwritten Law. And this is when Blink-182 was opening for Unwritten Law. So I think it was maybe when Dude Ranch had just come out, or
that sounds like Dude Ranch era. Yep.
Yeah, it was for sure Dude Ranch era, but I don't remember if they had like were already blowing up or if it was like early, like right before they had blown up, you know, because I saw them at Warped Tour before that too. And you know, I was familiar with them. But anyhow, that venue to me always in my mind was like, this place is enormous. This is where like huge bands go and play. You know, later I seen like Built to Spill there, and I saw like Fugazi, and I seen like Ben Folds and stuff like that, right? So yeah, it was kind of one of those moments where I'm just like, man, this is crazy that at 40 something I'm on this stage and I'm performing on this stage that I grew up like seeing all these crazy artists on. And not only that, but like that show particularly, that was like my hometown show. And so tons of my friends were at that show, like my family was at the show. And so it was a good feeling, you know, to play like in this venue that was to me very monumental to my life, and to play it to like a sold out crowd, and to have so many of my friends and family there was like very special.
That's the best. Those are the moments that I live for. And I've had a couple in memory entries, short time as a band. You know, we got to play with Idle Airs. Sean Ingram sings for that band, and we connected with him. That was great. I got to be involved in the Ink and Dagger reunion shows to a degree, and some Frail shows on the West Coast. You were there. That was one of those. Like, what are some of those other moments for you? Like, for me, there are still venues I want to play. There are still bands I want to play with. There are still things I want to accomplish. What are some of those recent or not recent moments for you where you're like, yeah, I finally did this thing I always wanted to do?
So playing the Metro in Chicago, and the Metro is smaller than Electric Factory, but I had this live DVD in the 90s or in the early 2000s. It was a Jeff Buckley live in Chicago DVD, and that show was at the Metro. So I always knew it by name, and just the stage setup. It has these like big white pillars along the sides. So I know that one was like, oh man, that's so awesome. Like I get to play this venue that I have on DVD, you know, that I used to watch all the time. Let's see. I mean, going over to Europe last year, that was my first time ever going to Europe in a band, which is like, you know, kind of crazy because I'd played in a lot of bands before, but we'd always played like the States and Canada, and then I'd been to Japan a bunch of times, and then the year prior, you know, Poison the Well did go to England, so I mean, I guess technically that's Europe, but mainland Europe, you know, I'd never been there with a band, so I think that was a really huge accomplishment. Or you know, something that was special to me, where I'm just like, wow, we get to do this, you know. And then there's other things where, like certain festivals, you know, like playing Riot Fest. I know when Riot Fest first started, I always saw their lineups, and I was like, this is crazy. This is a really cool festival. So to be able to play certain festivals has always been pretty awesome when it happens. I don't think it would be as big of a deal now because it's kind of, you know, it's like not anywhere near as cool as it used to be, but playing Coachella would be pretty cool if that ever happens. But again, like I said, like they don't really do as many rock bands as they used to. But at a certain point, like Coachella was like a very special thing to me. At least I used to go every year when there was a lot more artists that I cared about or that I wanted to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I make fun of it, but still, if I played it, I'd be telling everyone, yeah, I'm playing Coachella this year. I'm playing, I'd be telling everybody.
Yeah, and I know certain artists that have played it before, like Circus played it, and Dredge have played it, and they said it was great. And then Hornbrook actually played it too. He played it with Trash Talk. Remember that band?
Yeah.
There was like a very brief period where I don't know if he like filled in for their drummer or if they just didn't have a drummer at the time, but I know he only played like a handful of shows with Trash Talk, and one of them was at Coachella. So like he even got to play it, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Speaking of fests, Sound and Fury, how was playing that? Whenever I see clips of Sound and Fury in particular on social media, that crowd just looks massive. It looks unbelievable. How was it?
Yeah, that was a really great show, and we got added on to that sort of towards the end. Like we weren't originally supposed to be playing that as their lineup was announced, and then I remember getting a call and saying, "Hey, are you available to play this festival?" And I actually had our when we went camping last year, or when we had the Airbnb, it was right at that time, and I was like,
you
"Oh
came
my
right
God!"
back from it, right?
Well, no, it was right beforehand, but I had to reschedule my entire trip. I was supposed to get to Pennsylvania a lot earlier, and I had to reschedule a ton of stuff to make that happen, but I couldn't miss that, and I don't think the band was going to miss it. So if I didn't play it, they probably would have asked somebody else to fill in for me, and I was like, I don't want that to happen. I really want to be a part of it. So that was my first time actually ever going to Sound and Fury. I've wanted to go in years past, and I've had periods, or there were periods of time when different people put that festival on. And at a certain point, it was actually put on by Ray Harkins and Joey Cahill, and I forget who else. Maybe Bob Shed at some point, but it had changed hands over time over who had like the rights to the name and who was booking it and whatnot. So there were times before when I was planning on going and I just never did. So I can't speak on years past because I know that the festival has been getting bigger and bigger throughout the years, and the venues have changed to accommodate, the larger audiences. So now they have it at, it's outside, and it's at this place called Exposition Park, which is in this museum area by USC campus in LA. And I would go there all the time to go to this place called the California Science Center. It's like a really cool science museum. So it's literally like this giant area that is in between like a college football stadium and these museums. And when we got there, because we got there to sound check at like 8 a.m, it's an all day festival, so you have to get there so early to sound check. It was only us and Knock Loose got a sound check because we were headlining the one stage and they were headlining the other stage. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, there's going to be this many hardcore people here. Furnace Fest is sort of that way too, but Furnace Fest is a lot more spread out. Like Sound and Fury is in a much smaller area. So yeah, I don't remember what they said the attendance was, but I think it was like 8,000. There's like 8 to 10,000 people. So it was a substantial amount of people, and they kind of took the model. Again, I don't know about years past, but the year that we played last year, they took the model, which I'd only previously seen in Europe or in the UK for Outbreak, where they have like a stage in front of the stage. And the reason why they do that is so the people that want to jump up on the stage and stage dive, they don't like get in the way of the band, right? They kind of like, it's supposed to be like a buffer so that you have your space and then they have their space and they can still go crazy and people can still go crazy. But like that just went out the window immediately. And then you also have like 100 stage potatoes. So like you've got all these people on stage, and then a crowd of people will rush the stage, especially on the songs that have like the Poison the Well sing along songs. So like, Nerdy at the end and then Artist and stuff. So if you watch the videos from Sound and Fury, I mean, it was chaos. There was like, I want to say probably like 200 people on the stage, between the stage potatoes and between the people singing along. And I was like this in the corner next to my amp, like, please don't, jump on me. Like, don't keep my shit to the side so that my cables don't get knocked out, and like just like I just need a little bit of room for myself. And like the whole time I was thinking, I'm like, man, I hope Jeff is all right, because like, you know, we're older now, and it's not really that enjoyable to have like, you know, 10, let alone like 100 people jumping on top of you to sing along. So there was a couple times where I'd seen that happen before, where he sort of like, he does kind of like a snake move, where he kind of like gets his way out of there, and then like the people are singing just on a pile on each other, you know, and he's not even there. I don't know if he gives them the microphone or whatnot, but like I know that at one point he kind of got caught in that, where there was a lot of people on top of him, and I think he like had hurt his back. I think he like actually had like some injury after that. So while the festival, like while it looks cool, like, you know, if you look at the videos, it looks pretty awesome, and it was a cool experience to be on that stage and see all that happen, but it's like, it's kind of dangerous, you know. So I don't know if we're gonna do something like that again. I mean, I guess, you know, I can't speak for the band, but it is kind of dangerous.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the clip I just saw on YouTube. There was a stage in front of a stage, and Jeff did this cool call out before the breakdown and sliced paper wrists, and people are just on the stage like moshing and running around and stage diving, and I was like, wow, they have a stage just for moshing. I like that, because people are too like, look at me at hardcore shows these days. You'll see, if I recognize people stage diving, that's a problem. I'm like, that person again? And then people do this move where they run on stage and grab the singer's hand to like sing into the mic. That's very intrusive. I don't like that.
Yeah. And I've been to a couple things recently where I've seen that a bunch. Like I went to the Hellfest West out here, and I saw a good share of that, where I definitely got the feeling where there was a few people that were sort of like, look at me type people, you know, like they just kind of like want to be in front of everybody, but not always, you know. Certain people are they just want to, you know, they just want to like sing along, and you know how hardcore is. It's like, it's a very inclusive thing for a lot of people, and people are like very into it when they're into it. So it's definitely a part of the show. But yeah, in my opinion, there's different ways that you can approach doing that, and certain ways are a little bit more kinder to the band, rather than just like, coming up to a singer and like trying to grab a mic off from their hand, which is not cool.
There's a right way to do it, and I've gone over it on the show, everybody. So I talked about it with Ryan, the singer of One Step Closer, last time he was on. So look, if you need to hear the rules, go back and listen. How was it filming the videos for the new singles? Were you guys like on a horse farm for one of them?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was a horse farm. So it's a ranch, right? So there were a lot of horses there because people just keep them there in their stable. So it's a place called Gibson Ranch, which is just north of LA. And we were there for a full day. The director is Chris Candy, who's John Candy's son. And so I think he had maybe scouted the location. But there were a lot of other animals there too, not just horses. Like, there was like, there's like chickens and, you know, just all the, whatever farm animals that they have there. But I think originally, you know, on the call sheet that we had received, I think we were supposed to be, as a band, like performing in like an enclosure, like in a barn or something, or I don't know exactly. I think I remember it being a barn. And then when we got there, you know, they're filming the woman on the horse who's like, you know, part of the story or whatever, and they're doing that like all through lunch or like past lunch, you know, and at a certain point, it's like it's starting to get a little bit later, and we're like, you know, the sun's going to go down because this is in January or something, and you know the days are short, so we're like looking at the clock and we're like, it's kind of winding down. Like, should we go set up or something? And then like Chris at some point comes up to us, the director, and he's like, yeah, so I found a good location for where we're going to shoot the band. It's like a little bit down the road, so we're going to have to kind of like do a little walk to this location to shoot the band. And we're all like, okay. And then like we have all our gear that we have to, obviously it's not plugged in, but it's like, you know, we got gear behind us, and then we've got Chris's drums and whatnot. And then we realize that it's like, it's almost a half-mile walk, like past the ranch. And we're like, are you fucking serious? Like, it's already kind of like the day's kind of winding down, and we're just doing this now, right? So yeah, that was brutal, man. We had to lug gear, and some of the stage hands were helping us there, or some of the crew, But for the most part, it was like us, the guys, like we were like carrying shit. There was a few wagons that we were using, but the wagons were like really crappy. Like the handle kept falling off on one of them. And like, so man, by the time we got down there and brought all of our gear and like set up and everything, I mean, we had like an hour of sunlight left. So we may have gotten, I don't know, maybe like 6 takes maybe of the band just going through the song. And that's it. It wasn't like a lot. So yeah, that video, I think all of us will always remember that particular one because of how hot it was and how miserable everybody was carrying gear. You know, not to take away, like it was still fun. It was overall like a pretty fun day and a unique day. And then the other one that we did for Everything Hurts was in this venue called the Sardine, which is a pretty cool smaller size venue in San Pedro, California. And I'd actually seen a show there before. I'd seen John Reese from Hot Snakes and Drive Like Jehu play there before. And it's not, you know, it's a pretty small venue. But the concept was supposed to be like a day in a life on tour, you know, so that's why Jeff he starts out in the bathroom because he's kind of, you know, he's supposed to be like freshening up or whatever. And then he comes out and does a sound check with us. And then it just sort of follows him throughout the course of the day. And then, you know, there's like little Easter eggs throughout where he runs into all of us throughout the day. And then at the end of it, you know, we come together and then we're like going out on stage to perform the show. There's not really a show happening. It's just, it's sort of like a, you know, like a magic, but yeah. And then there was also the video for Trembling Level the year prior, which that was like, it was shot at the Fonda in LA, which is a venue that Ryan had worked at for a really long time. And so he's got a really good rapport with the staff there and everything. And that one felt like much more at home. But yeah, the 3 videos that I've done so far with the band have all been super fun. It's not really something that I'm used to doing. I've been on a couple of video shoots before, but never like in this scope of a band that I'm playing in. And it was a unique experience. Yeah, it was definitely different. There was like full crews, you know what I mean? It wasn't like 1 or 2 guys with an iPhone or like a small camera. I mean, there was it was a full crew of people, like 10 to 15 people on each of those video shoots. So it was a pretty unique experience.
Yeah, is that trippy for you at all? Because I mean, you know, you've been in bands over the years, but it's a lot of firsts for you. Like you said, you were mainland Europe for the first time. You're filming multiple music videos and playing giant sold out shows. And I mean, do you ever like stop and think, wow, this is trippy?
Yeah, I'm grateful. You know, I think a grateful is the right way to express how I feel about it, because I didn't think I would be doing this into my 40s. You know, I'm actually like in my 20s, in my mid 20s even. I think I was pretty happy with what I had already accomplished in terms of like a musical career. You know what I mean? Because even though This Day Forward, for example, never was like a huge band, I think we still got to do a lot more than most bands get to do. You know, we got to release music, we got to put out records and tour around, you know, and play a lot of really cool venues. And a lot of bands don't really get to that level, which so I was already grateful. So like all of this stuff that's happening now is almost like it's just like icing on the cake, you know? So I feel really grateful to be able to do it more than anything because I really enjoy playing music, as you know, but also because it sort of broadens the life experience, you know, and that's kind of like, that's how I look at almost everything nowadays. It's just like, this is a cool life experience. It's like, I get to have this as part of something that I did in my life and something that I can talk about in the future, you know, about my past and whatnot. So like, yeah. So nowadays, anything new that happens is just like icing on the cake. It's like, I'm very grateful for being a part of it. And I'm very grateful for the life that I have.
Yeah, I feel the same way because in 2018, after the Basement Year EP came out and that band fell apart, I was like, that's it. I'm too old. No one is going to play in a band with me again. It's just, there's no way it's ever going to be able to happen. So the fact that it's happening now and I'm getting to do some awesome things, I'm just always happy, you know, even if we're like carrying all the stuff and being really tired. And then we have to drag everything back to the practice space at like 3 or 4 a.m. I'm still doing it with a smile on my face because I'm like, I get to do it now. Finally. Awesome.
Yeah, and that's a good outlook to have, right? I mean, I think that's a good outlook to have. The one thing that I will say that has not yet happened that I think, and I'm not like we should do this, but if it happens, I will be very excited is to go to South America, because I'd never been there before for anything, and I know a lot of people who have, but in general, I think it would be a cool experience to be able to go to, like, Brazil or Peru or Chile, so it doesn't even matter where, to be honest with you, but just in one of the South American countries, or two of the South American countries even. And I know that's something that was talked about at a certain point, and I don't think that it made sense at the time, but if that were to happen in the future, I think that would be another thing that would be like a really big one for me.
This day forward, Vadim, a band you are in, true or not true?
True.
Very good. No. We played the reunion shows in 2024. Has there been any discussions or plans or anything else for this day forward?
There was a little bit of talk about possibly doing something else, but as you know, with the original reunions, it's just very difficult to kind of get everybody together and to just get everybody to have the time to do it. So, I was trying really hard to make something happen, but it didn't really quite work out with everybody's schedules. And then now, I guess we could talk about it now, but Circa has announced that Circa is doing a whole bunch of stuff, and it seems even way less likely, right? Because, that's a much larger priority for Colin and for Brendan now. I know that they're not, as of right now anyway, as far as my knowledge goes, they're not planning on doing like a full-time thing again, but it sounds like they're just going to kind of dip their toes in and just do a little bit at a time and just see how it goes. And so, I'm very happy for them. Like really, honestly, like I'm so, and by the response that they've received so far, it seems like a lot of people are really stoked, which is not surprising, but I'm just really happy for those guys. And I hope that, I hope that those shows are going to be incredible. I know they will be. I'm actually having super serious fear of missing out on those Philly shows. So there's a chance I might try to come home for at least one of them. Because like
if you do, go to the Tuesday one, because I'm going to that one. Yeah,
that's the one my family got tickets for. My brother and my mom are going to go to that one. So if anything, I would go to that one. But it's still, with all my travel plans, it's kind of uncertain, but I really would like to go there because it's going to be another one of those like the TDF Philadelphia show where there's going to be a lot of our friends there. I think that's going to be, and plus it's the first show back too. So I think that would be like a really cool thing to witness.
Oh yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Because I recently heard your episode with Jeremy Boehm, and that was kind of funny because you got two podcasters kind of like talking to each other, and I think at one point he said something like, I'm just so tempted to just continue asking you questions, but yeah, there's I guess a question that I have for you, Keith, is like, so when your podcast first started out, you were primarily interviewing friends, you were or people that you had known through music. Some of them may be closer than others, maybe some are just acquaintances, and then of course you've expanded, and now you have been interviewing like people that you don't know, people from bands that you grew up listening to, all this kind of stuff. But is it still like is it different for you when you interview someone that like someone who's a friend? Like you and I are like actual friends, like we hang out, we've gone on trips together and like all this, we've toured together, all this kind of stuff. Is it different for you interviewing someone and like the comfort level and the way you approach the interview versus somebody that you've never talked to, or someone that you don't know very well?
Yeah, I get a lot more nervous when it's people I don't know, especially when it's someone more mainstream. I interviewed Karina from Pussifer, and she's a solo artist as well, and I was really nervous about that because I still have this insecurity in me where I think they're going to come on the show and just be like, what the fuck is this? Who are you? Like, why am I, you know what I mean? And there is a lot more anxiety for people I don't know because I never know exactly what I'm walking into. With friends, I still, no matter what, even if I'm recording the podcast with Nathaniel or even like coming to record with you, there is a nervousness that is always there. but I just have to push through it and do the thing. And if I'm having a friend on, I'm less likely to do deep research, as in like if I'm having Vadim Taver on, I'm not going to go search articles for Vadim Taver and try to find quotes and try to find talking points. What I would do with a close friend like you is just bullet out the things I want to hit on, or like maybe we talk ahead of time and you give me some ideas, and I'm always open to that. So if it's a close friend, I'm less likely to do an internet research deep dive and more to just formulate my own thoughts and things I want to talk about.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for answering that.
Of course. I love being asked questions. It's fun to be interviewed. Is it fun for you?
Yeah, will you tell me about your bathroom habits?
We're going to cover that in the Patreon specific questions, everybody. So make sure you sign up today. Vadim, I'm very excited to hear Peace in Place. I'm very excited to see you on tour with the band once again. Give a mission statement / final thoughts on Peace in Place, Poison the Well, upcoming tour, hopes, expectations. Just give the people some final thoughts as we wind down here.
I guess the mission statement is just to have fun. I think that's kind of why a lot of us have started playing music in the first place, and just to remember that's kind of at the heart of it, and not just like be business all the time and be super serious all the time. I mean, there is an importance to that, but at the same time, like, there's got to be time for relaxation and messing around, and to, not get super bent out of shape over something that doesn't really matter in the end, So, and I think that everybody's kind of on the same page about that in the band. I think for where we are now, I think that the friendships are really good. Like everybody has a relationship with each other. And as adults, everybody can hear each other out and can communicate better, and that's really positive. That's a really nice thing, because when you're younger, you're a lot more heated, you're a lot more stubborn, and oftentimes that leads to unnecessary conflict. So yeah, we're really excited about playing these new songs. So hopefully people like them, and hopefully they go over well.
Awesome. Well, Vadim, it's always a pleasure to see and talk to you, and I want to say, number one, thank you for coming back on the show. And number two, I will see you in Brooklyn.
Thanks for having me, Keith.